Hi guys, I spent some time trying to understand why polls were so inaccurate in 2016 and whether we can trust the current ones. I found a couple of strange and interesting things which I want to share with you. If you follow the situation in US, most of the polls, including Republicans, are predicting that Trump will lose in November. And Trump will definitely lose the popular vote. Most of the polls showing Biden having an advantage of at least 6% over Trump. But, contrary to most of the countries in the world, the winner of US election is decided by electoral college, not by popular vote. Here is how it works. Every state has a specific number of points to win, and within the state, the person who will get the majority of votes takes all these points, and the loser gets 0. There are 539 points in total, and in order to win you need to score 270 points. The majority of the states has a very strong support of one specific party. Therefore, we can predict their results in advance. Basically, we all know that Biden will win California and Trump will win Alabama. If we sum up all these safe states, Biden will get 212 points and Trump will get 125 points. At this point, Biden has 90 points more. All other states are swing states, so we don't really know the results in advance. But we still have lots of information. Definitely not all of the swing states are the same. There are states where Trump is projected to win. These are Texas, Iowa, Georgia, and Ohio. This gives Trump 203 points. Then you have North Carolina and Florida. Polls are really tight there, but Biden has a slight advantage within the margin of error. If Trump wins these states, he will get 247 points. The next group of swing states is where Biden projected to win with a significant margin. These are Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Michigan. I've arranged them from the highest to lowest chances to win for Trump. As you can see, if Trump wins Arizona and Pennsylvania, he will get 278 points, and this will make him a winner. Alternatively, he can lose Pennsylvania and win Wisconsin, and then he will be only 2 points short from the victory. Now let's deep dive into the polls. In 2016, Hillary was projected to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan with a margin of at least 5%. In reality, Trump won all of these states with a slight margin of 0.7%. Why polls were so inaccurate in 2016? First, some people, mostly Republican, think that all the polls are fake and they are designed to suppress the voters. Sure, some of them are indeed fake and they are lacking of any good methodology, but you can't really explain why some of the Republican polls like Fox News were showing the same plus 5% for Hillary for these states. A more scientific explanation, which I agree with, is that there was some kind of a systemic error in all the polls which reduced the amount of votes for Trump. The most popular speculation here is that pollsters haven't counted enough of the rural voters or that Trump voters are too shy to respond to the polls. These are partially true, but it doesn't explain why pollsters miss these people. Nor does gives us any solution how to prevent the same kind of error in 2020. My guess is that the same kind of systemic error might be present in the polls. Let's look at the actual polls internals and understand what's going on there. I prefer CBS News YouGo polls because they have very good methodology, they have lots of people, and all of their data are open. And they are not affiliated with Democrats or Republicans. Let's start from Arizona. Real Clear Politics polls average shows us that Biden is +4, but CBS polls gives us Biden +3. Here are detailed numbers by party affiliation. 95% of Democrats going to vote for Biden, 93% for Trump, and then you have independents, which are 39-40. But then you have 12% of independents which are not sure and 9% of independents which are going to vote for someone else. This makes up 21%, which can easily go to Biden or Trump. And this is actually 6.3 actual points. There is no much surprise that Democrats vote for Biden and Republicans vote for Trump. But the biggest question I have here, why do we have 35% of Democrats and only 34% of Republicans? If you look at the registered voters in Arizona, you will have 30% of Democrats and 35% of Republicans. Registered voters are not the same as likely voters, but still, this kind of difference is very suspicious. The assumption that Republicans will just skip the election is kind of fishy. Let me be clear, pollsters don't really call 2,000 of random people and then ask them, hey, are you Democrat or Republican? And then they say, okay, we've got 30% of Democrats and 25% of Republicans. That's not how it works, because if it worked like this, you would have some kind of a crazy bias because old people tend to participate in those kind of surveys more often than some young busy folks. So they have to come up with distribution in advance and then call to X amount of Democrats and then Y amount of Republicans. We don't really know how do they determine this distribution. Can it be completely off? Sure. What about 2016? Let's look at CBS prediction and compare it to the actual exit poll results. The prediction of distribution of Democrats and Republicans is pretty accurate, as you can see, but you can also see that Republicans are the majority here, not minority. Another interesting thing that Trump was leading among independents, and it's not really the case now, it's just only 1% compared to 10%. So, my assumption about Arizona is the distribution between Democrats and Republicans is off. And if this will be fixed and all undecided voters suddenly won't vote for Biden, Trump is a clear winner of Arizona. Now let's go and look at the much tougher one, Pennsylvania. A real clear politics average is 4.1% for Biden. The latest CBS poll is from August, but it's accurate enough and has enough data for a deep analysis. Here, Biden is +6. The interesting thing here is Biden is +4 among independents, but we still have 16% of undecided voters among independents, which is 3.5 points which can go to Biden or Trump. The biggest question now is the distribution. Why do we have more Democrats than Republicans? The reality is that among registered voters, you have 48% of Democrats and 38% of Republicans, which is a huge advantage to Democrats. Let's look at the prediction from 2016 and compare it to exit poll results. Here you can see that Hillary was predicted +8, and in reality it was Trump +0.7. And why it was like this? First of all, distribution was predicted wrong. They predicted 40% Democrats and 31 Republicans, and in reality you had 42% Democrats and 39 Republicans. Another thing that independents voted for Trump, both in prediction and in actual results. Currently, independents are slightly leaning towards Biden. The turnout was pretty low, only 60%. Pretty much the reason why Hillary lost is that Democrats largely ignored the elections. Would they do this again this year? Probably not at that scale. Nonetheless, the current percentage of predicted Republicans is much higher than the prediction which was made in 2016. Another good news for the Republicans is that within the last 4 years, Republicans managed to have a net gain of registered voters of 130,000, which gives them maybe 2% advantage. As you know, in 2016, Trump won Pennsylvania with a very little margin. Although this poll is most likely not accurate, it's gonna be pretty hard for Trump to win Pennsylvania. But there are a couple of very important issues which can change everything here. First thing, I call it Democratic Civil War. There is a so-called progressive left wing of the Democratic Party, which is Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ilhan Omar, and others. In 2016, Bernie lost to Hillary. In 2020, Bernie lost to Biden. In both cases, the DNC establishment led by Obama made lots of bad things against Bernie and prevented Bernie from getting the nominee. Sanders supporters don't really like nor excited about Biden. No Medicare for all, no Green New Deal. They don't really feel they belong to the Democratic Party. The question is how many of them we have and how they're gonna vote. Sanders supporters among the registered Democrats were like 30% right before Bernie dropped out. And there is a poll that 50% of Bernie voters gonna vote for Trump. Now look at the projected Democrat vote in Pennsylvania. Can you believe that Bernie supporters are included in here? Like 90% pro-Biden? I believe this is true for normal Democrats, but including Bernie bros? I don't think so. Either Trump or undecided voters among them should be higher. At the same time, you can see a shift towards Biden among independents. My assumption here is that Bernie bros are no longer associated themselves with Democratic parties, and they are counted as independent, which means that actual slice of Democrats is smaller, and the actual slice of independents is larger. And this kind of systemic error can change everything. Problem number 2, lack of enthusiasm for Biden. Basically, no one is voting for Biden, everyone votes against Trump. When you're trying to identify the likely voters, you have to measure hate against Trump vs love for Trump. And hate is usually a much stronger feeling than love. Therefore, you might assume that haters are more likely voters than likers. And in reality, it's gonna be the same. And the last one, all the suppression polls which shows Biden +5 are actually motivating Republicans to vote and slightly demotivating Democrats to vote. Okay, let's move on. Let's look whether Trump can win Wisconsin. The situation is kind of similar. You have more Democrats than Republican, like officially predicted, and in previous years as well. But the biggest problem here is that independents are strongly pro-Biden, and there is only 10 points among them to decide. And if you compare it to the previous year, one of the things that they got the distribution wrong, but you can clearly see that independents were strongly pro-Trump. And the turnout was much higher. So my take out here is that in Wisconsin you have a very little space to move. So the chances for Trump to win are much lower. Michigan. Situation is quite similar. You have more Democrats than Republicans. Then you have independents. And the independents are slightly leaning into Biden. There is some space to move, sure. But the reason why Trump won last time is that independents voted strongly pro-Trump. And this is definitely not the case now. So I don't believe Trump can win Michigan. There are also Nevada and New Hampshire when Trump lost back in 2016. And because of this, we don't have any good polls for this year because everyone assumed that he's going to lose there as well. Another YouGov poll just came out yesterday. Unfortunately, it's a combined one for Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So we can't really see crosstabs per state. But they use the same methodology so we can compare some things. And according to them in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, Biden is +4, which is 2 points less. There is a crosstab for all 3 states by party ID. And the most interesting thing that Trump is +1 among independents, which is very different from previous polls. And 13% of independents are not decided yet. Also, Republicans have 5% undecided and Democrats only 3%. This is a clear advantage to Trump. My conclusion is that Trump has a very real chance of winning this election. There are lots of things which can happen within the next month, and the most important is probably the debates which are going to happen next week. This can reshape picture in both directions. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Bye!